this session. If you're just tuning in or if you've been waiting for a little while, I figured some people were probably in other sessions and trying to get off and get away and go into the next one. So I hope that you have thoroughly enjoyed the ESSA Academy this year. This is something that is different for us. We normally do rules and regs and some other trainings, but we've combined everything all into one, except for new coordinators. So this is new and I've loved it so far. I hope that you have gotten a lot out of it, gained a lot of information from across the whole office throughout this week. So thank you for joining me today as we talk about Title IV, Part A. This particular grant is known as the Student Academic Enrichment Grant. So we'll start in just a second. Let me give you a couple of reminders that if you are listening in, please make sure that you mute your computer or your phone during the presentation. Everybody gets text messages, so you want to make sure that you're muted on your side. Make sure your camera function is turned off. If you have questions during the presentation, if you will just type them into the chat feature, I have someone listening in that can keep up with the questions and we'll try to answer those at the very end of the presentation. Just a reminder that we are recording the presentation so that you can view it later on, or for anyone who wanted to listen in today and who could not, you can go back. They can go back and access it a little later. It may take our tech team maybe about a week or so to get everything posted online, but if you're interested in going back and hearing a session that maybe you didn't get to attend, or one that you might have been taking notes on and you thought, well, I missed that and I want to go back and listen again, you can go back and listen to the recorded sessions. So I see we have quite a few people in the room, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I know it's the very end of the day. It's the last session of the day. You're probably tired, but I hope that you will find this particular session to be informative. I do want to tell you that this is going to kind of be like a Title IV 101, kind of like the beginning stages, especially for those who are new to the Title IV program. Later on, it is one of our goals in the Consolidated Finance and Applications team to provide a little more resources to the field for this grant and some of our other grants. So some things on the list to do. So we're really excited about everything that's going to come down the pipeline a little bit later. And here is our agenda. Whoops, a little too far, for the afternoon. We're going to talk about the background of this grant that is relatively new as compared to, say, Title I. We'll give you a little overview. We're going to talk about how the allocations are determined that goes out to the districts. We're going to talk about the needs assessment and how important doing a proper needs assessment is, whether you're doing the Title I grant, Title II, Title IV, or Title V. Needs assessment is so important. We're going to talk about what you can use the funds on, allowability, and we're going to talk about fiscal management and how to manage the funds. The background of this particular grant, like I said before, this is one of our newer grants, I guess you could say. The Title IV first went out in 18, so we had 18 Title IV. We're now up to the year 21 Title IV, and we are embarking on the 22 Title IV. This grant has come a really long way. I can remember when we first learned about Title IV and, you know, thinking, oh, wow, this is a new one. And we've really got to see how to do the allocations and figure out how is this one going to support the students and the districts. And when it first came out, I can remember that it was about 6 million total. And the 21 Title IV allocation now is about 19. So it has grown dramatically in the last couple of years. Probably part of that being contributed to the fact that it's well-rounded, safe and healthy. I really feel like this grant has helped during the time of COVID-19. I've seen a lot that has been done. The safe and healthy part and the technology piece has really been a great asset to the districts as we have navigated through the uncharted waters that we've had over the last year with due to the pandemic. So this grant has really stepped in there and has done a good job helping our districts and students, and I hope that you feel that way. That's what I see from looking through projects and plans. It looks like it has really come in and been a supportive tool to everybody. But the background of this is under subpart 1 of the Title IV Part A of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965, reauthorized by the Every Student Succeeds Act of 2015, and we first gave it out as the 18 Title IV grant. Okay, well, what is it for? Being that it's called this Academic Enrichment Grant, well, what does that mean? The SSAE program is intended to improve student academic achievement by increasing the capacity of state educational agencies, local education agencies, schools, and local communities to do the following. Number 1, it is here to help us provide all students with access to a well-rounded education. If you are a parent, I know that you share the same sentiments with me, that we want our children to have access to as much as we can that will afford them an all-around well-rounded education. Number 2, to improve school conditions for student learning. By all means, we want them to have the best that they can have. And number 3, to improve the use of technology in order to improve the academic achievement and digital literacy of all students. Again, if you are a parent, you may be like me, especially if you're my age. My children know a lot more about technology than I do sometimes, it seems. And so we want education to be on the cutting edge in all aspects. And so we want them to have the technology that they need to be able to learn and be able to manage all the curriculum that is set before them. Okay, there are 3 content areas in which a district can spend funds: well-rounded, safe and healthy, and technology. The well-rounded and the safe and healthy, you have to have at least 20% of the funds in these areas, and technology has a cap of no more than 15% of the funds. Now, currently in the 21 Title IV, these 3 content areas are holding at those unless we receive the waiver from the U.S. Department of Ed. And I'm sure that you have listened to other sessions where we've talked about the fact that it looks like that is coming, and if and when it does, I feel like I should say when it does, I will ask GEMS to lift the error message for these content areas so that you can maybe go a little above the 15% for technology. It has really served its purpose with the 19 and 20 being able to lift that cap for the technology spending, especially during that time of the pandemic. It has really helped having that waiver. So if you're working on the 21 project, making amendments and things like that, as soon as I know more, I will inform the field of more, but right now we're holding at the cap of the 15%. All right, well, let's talk about what well-rounded supports. Sorry, sometimes I progress the slides too far. All right, here are some things that you can use well-rounded for: improving access to foreign language instruction, arts and music education, supporting college and career counseling, including providing information on opportunities for financial aid, providing programming to improve instruction and student engagement in science, technology, engineering, and math. So STEM. When I look at a lot of these projects, I see a lot of STEM activities being supported through Well-Rounded. That would include computer science and increasing access to these subjects for underrepresented groups. Promoting access to accelerated learning opportunities, including AP and IB programs, dual or concurrent enrollment programs, and early college high schools. Strengthening instruction in American history, civics, economics, geography, government education, and environmental education. It all sounds like a well-rounded kid, doesn't it? Safe and healthy. What does it support? Promoting community and parent involvement in schools. Sounds very much like Title I, doesn't it? Providing school-based mental health services and counseling. That has really come in handy here lately as well. Promoting supportive school climates to reduce the use of exclusionary discipline and promoting supportive school discipline. Establishing or improving dropout prevention. Supporting reentry programs and transition services for justice-involved youth. Implementing programs that support a healthy, active lifestyle, such as nutritional and physical education. Implementing systems and practices to prevent bullying and harassment. And developing relationship building skills to help improve safety through the recognition and prevention of coercion, violence, or abuse. Technology. We'll make sure I get them all. All right. Area 3, the part that is capped at 15%. What can you do with these funds? These funds are there to support high quality PD for educators, school leaders, and administrators to personalize learning and improve academic achievement, to build technological capacity and infrastructure, carrying out innovative blended learning projects, providing students in rural, remote, and underserved areas with the resources to benefit from high-quality digital learning opportunities, delivering specialized or rigorous academic courses and curricula using technology, including digital learning technologies and assistive technology. Okay, and now we're going to talk about allocations to the LEAs. Sometimes the field would like to know, well, how are the allocations determined for all of these different grants, ESSA grants? And so I'm going to talk to you for a minute about how we determine Title IV allocations. This is not one of those that I discussed whenever we did the finance presentation. I mainly focused in on Title I and Title II. So I'm going to talk to you a minute about how we determine allocations for Title IV. Title IV references Title I. So again, the process looks very similar to Title I. We receive information from the U.S. Department of Ed. It comes in the form of data and letters, and it comes via email. And we're provided information on how much our state receives, what the total allocation is going to be for the state. We receive a GAN, just like we produce and send out and distribute GANs to you, the LEAs. We receive a GAN as well, and all that GAN includes all kind of information, just like the one that you receive includes a lot of information, and in there is the total, but that is not how we decide how to allocate the funding. We actually have to go to the guidance and read. And so the second portion here that I have written kind of describes how Title IV allocations are determined. We award subgrants to the LEAs by formula in the same proportion as to the LEA's prior year's Title I part allocations. So we pull the Title I allocations and we take a look at what you received for Title I and what proportion of the whole that your district received. And we use that formula to help us determine Title IV. So that's kind of how that process goes. Okay, but when we get the whole, when we get that whole total and we realize, just like for 21 Title IV, that it's 19 million, we take a look and we look at the guidance to say, okay, are there any reservations? Because you know, for Title I, we have to reserve a certain amount for school improvement, we reserve a certain amount for admin, and we're capped in those areas. The same thing kind of holds true for Title IV. We're able to hold 1% of the reservation for state admin, and then 2% for any state level activities. And I will speak to that for just a second. Those type of state level activities have to serve in the same route as what Title IV is used for, like on a district level. So it has to stay true to the purpose of the grant. So it is not like for those state level activities, it can be used for anything. It has to, the allowability feature for the state is very similar to that for the district. So it has to stay to the intent and the purpose of this particular program. And so just like for Title I and Title II, Title V, Title IV, most of the money goes out to the districts, and that is what we want. We want to push out as much as we possibly can so that you have all the resources that you need to be able to meet the needs of the students in your district. And so we try to push that out, and we try to be very timely. As soon as we get it, we try to get started so that you have it in a timely fashion. The period of performance. You might say, well, Jennifer, how do I know what the period of performance is? Let me encourage the field that GANs are emailed to the superintendent. So I want to encourage the field that there be some type of procedures within your district office that once the superintendent's office receives the GAN and the assurances and the terms and conditions and the cover letter, that you who are running the grant, whether you're the Title IV coordinator, if you work in finance, you need to be able to gain access to a copy of that. There should always be a copy of the GAN at your district. One reason mainly is for auditing purposes, because if the auditors come in, they're going to ask to see a copy. But most importantly, because the GAN includes so much information that finance needs to be able to set it up in their system, and also so that the programmatic person knows what the grant is for, when the grant starts, when the grant ends, the purpose and intent of the particular grant that you're looking at. So try to make sure that the superintendent's office is able to make you a copy if you're working directly with the Title IV grant. The period of performance is found on that GAN. You'll see it on the left-hand side of the GAN. For every ESSA grant that the Consolidated Finance and Applications team operate and oversee, these grants are for 2 years. And so it's interesting because you always have more than one open at the same time. And so you really have to keep up with that. You always want to try to claim your old money first. That's just a good rule of thumb, but they're 2-year grants. And so you want to, like I said, expend and claim on the older grants first. Now, because of the pandemic and the COVID-19 situation, we were extended some of our grants a little longer than normal. So we're in an interesting situation with our 19 and 20 grants expiring at the same time. In all my years of service, I've not ever seen that or encountered that. So please be mindful that whereas you might be thinking, well, I'm just going to deal with 19 because it's going to go out because I'm supposed to do the old money first, 20 is going to go out at the same time. And that kind of plays tricks with your mind. So know that both of those are going to expire September the 30th of 2021. If you look on into your GAN, it will tell you dates that are important. like when you can file the last claim and things of that nature. So the cover letter will do that as well. So again, I go back to make sure you see a copy of that. With the 21 grant, that one runs from July the 1st of 2020 through September the 30th of 22. And I'm going to use it as an example as I talk about submitting claims. Know that the state's fiscal year ends June the 30th, so we still have that August the 15th deadline. Although these grants end September 30th, you want to just keep that August the 15th deadline in mind, but you also have a November the 15th final date for one to expire. So the GAN and the cover letter will explain all of that. So keep those dates in mind. Dates can really be a beast if they get out of order. So make sure you know which grants expire when. You can also look in GAPS. GAPS will tell you when these grants expire. So you got multiple ways of knowing the information that you need to run the program. All right, the needs assessment. From the field, you are probably used to doing a needs assessment. I can remember being on the school level and doing needs assessments myself, because you should be planning any ESSA grant based on the needs of the schools that you are working with. The funds are supposed to be expended to help meet whatever need that you all have determined based upon the data and other resources such as that. So who is it that needs to come to the table when it's time to do a needs assessment? And here's some examples of who should be sitting around the table making these decisions. You should have teachers on board. Guess what? Out of everybody, the teacher definitely knows what the needs of the students are. So have some teachers sit around the table. Principals, they know what's going on and what the needs are. You can have other school leaders. If you have a Title I facilitator or a curriculum coach or a technology coach, have them come to the table and give their thoughts based upon what they're seeing going on in the school they're working in. Instructional support personnel, which is what I just described, and private school administrators. The online application. We are still using GEMS for the online applications. I have not yet determined, I saw a question pop up a while ago, when the application deadline will be for this, because we right now are focusing our efforts on Title I and Title II 22 preliminary, and then we'll move into Title IV. So that information is forthcoming. But when you do gain that information, make sure that you're working to complete and submit to your superintendent so it can run the route and make it to the program manager by the time that it's needed to come in for review. Let me give a little sidebar while I'm talking about this. When you go into the GEMS application, and for those of you that have ever worked in GEMS, if you go into GEMS and you go to the sections page, you can go to either the allocations tab or the budget overview. And if you're holding your GAN and you're looking at GEMS, you're going to notice that the allocations should be the same and the indirect cost rates should be the same. So all of that should be consistent across the board along with GAPS. So make sure if you're holding your GAN, you compare that to GEMS, and you should notice that everything flows seamlessly. Allowable use of funds. Oh, the supplement, not supplant. Title IV holds to the old supplement, not supplant rule. So make sure that you remember that you may not use Title IV funds to pay for activities that, in the absence of these funds, would be provided with state and local funds. If you have any questions on supplement, not supplant, or if you're sitting on thinking about doing an activity and you are curious if it's okay or if it's going to be allowable, you can always contact your program program manager and talk through that with them. Please don't ever feel like you can't call or send an email. We're here to support you. All right, how do we deal with the money? Records retention. I wanted to put this in here because I can remember being in the field and keeping all the documentation for monitoring and wondering how long, do I need to hang on to all of these records. So I wanted to put the timeline here for you for expirations of the grant. And here it says the documents must be kept for 5 years after the expiration of the grant. Okay, here again, you see until the end of the regular 5-year period or whichever is later. So you may want to come back to this slide for future reference once it's posted. Amendments. Honestly, I like to be better safe than sorry when it comes to amendments. Sometimes I'll get questions and people will say, well, Jennifer, do I have to do an amendment? Honestly, my opinion is if you are changing the grant, yes, you need to do an amendment. Because when you are monitored, the monitors are going to pull the latest grant that's in the system. So let's say you're on revision 2 for Title IV. They're going to pull it and they're going to expect to see in the field what they're reading on the computer. So it's just always best to be safe than sorry. If you're changing something in the grant, go ahead and send it back through. I know sometimes it can be aggravating to make its way through the fiscal representative and into the superintendent's office and all that, but we want to be as up to date with what's going on with how the district is spending the funds as best as we can. So do send an amendment. The process should be that the program person initiates amendments, not the finance office. So please make sure that GEMS is handled amendment-wise first, and that you receive approval from the program manager and the director before GAPS is updated, okay? Once the program manager and the director give their approval for an amendment within GEMS, you can then go on into GAPS and update your budgets, and then I will go in and pull both of them and look side by side to make sure that GEMS and GAPS match, okay? I am looking all the way down into the function and object codes. So make sure that the function and object codes and the money between GEMS and GAPS are seamless, okay? So we want to make sure that they match so that later on down the road, you don't have any issues when you get ready to claim. And here is a word to the wise. Remember that an amendment should be approved before the activity takes place, okay? Sometimes in the field that can be difficult, so make sure that even if you have to hold people off, you say, I need to get it approved before we do that. Because if for some reason we were to deem something as unallowable, then you would have to do some double work there, and we don't want that to happen. So make sure that you get it approved before the activity takes place. All right, some people are wanting to know about the amendment deadline. Right now we're saying approximately June the 5th. I've already taken a look at the calendar, and that's on Saturday. So if I had to say right now, it's probably going to be June the 4th, but it's not been set in stone. When it is set in stone, I will send out a mass email to let everybody know of the set in stone deadline, but it's always around June the 5th. All right, let's talk about drawdown of funds. Because the 19 and the 20 grants are expiring at the same time, I wanted to remind you not to leave any funding on the table. If you need to make amendments, feel free to do that, because we don't want the field to leave any money on the table. We don't want to have to send anything back to the U.S. Department of Ed. So please make sure that you are spending the funds, you're doing it in a timely manner so that they can be processed. We expect you to submit quarterly claims, but you can draw down monthly if you would like. That is up to you. Okay, keep the August the 15th deadline in mind, and remember that a final expenditure report for funds spent by September the 30th are due no later than November the 15th, and you will see that on your GANs. Now, I used the 21 grant there as a model, but you can take a look at the GANs and see all of those period of performance and claiming deadlines. Transferability. We see a lot of transferring going on with the Title IV. Sometimes districts will choose to transfer money into Title IV, but we really see a lot of Title IV going out into other programs. Sometimes districts will transfer Title IV into Title V. Once in a while, you'll see something going into Title I, but more often than not, I see transferability between Title IV, Title II, and Title V. So there's a little bit of notes there to kind of bring you up to speed on transferability of funds. On a side note, some of the GEMS projects have a link that says transfer of funds. The goal is for each of the grants that the Consolidated Finance and Applications team oversees to have that transfer link put in for the 22 grants. One of the main reasons that is because we have to track the 15% for Title I, and it is so much easier to just run a report in GEMS so that I know where the money is going all at one time, even though we're looking at it as it comes in. For a feature to help us work smarter, not harder on our side for the 22 grants, you will see little links that's already in, say, the Title II for the 21. So we're going to kind of bring the other ESSA grants up to speed just for help with us for tracking the 15%. As far as the 15% is concerned for Title I, I'll throw in a little plug here, and I said this also when I presented yesterday, that if you transfer money into Title I, so let's just, since we're talking about Title IV, I'll use it as an example. Any Title IV money that you move into Title I, we have to take that amount that you have moved in and we add it to the total of the Title I grant to then determine the 15%. So please keep in mind that any money moving into Title I has to be added to that Title I final allocation for us to then determine the 15%. And I want to make sure that I say that, because in the past, I don't know that I have communicated that as clearly and as often as I'm trying to now. So I wanted to just kind of give a plug to that, since we're talking about Title IV. A lot of people will transfer little pieces of money over into Title I. Monitoring. This is the side of the house that Karen Cook is the team lead of. You have Rhonda and Greg who go into the field or either do desk monitoring for Title IV. So let's talk about what you could kind of expect when it comes to monitoring. They like to visit. Here lately, we've not been able to visit. I used to love to visit. And when I was on the school level, I loved to be visited, because I felt like if I keep all this documentation, somebody should look at it. And so I would always volunteer, like, come look at mine. And so don't be afraid of the monitoring. You know, on our side of the house, we are looking at what you're doing. And if we find something to be off, we're going to tell you. So you already have that kind of umbrella covering safety net of us looking and approving your projects. So don't fear the monitoring team. Just be aware that they're just taking a look at what we've already approved. And as long as you're keeping your documentation and you're staying true to the activities written in that grant, and you're expending the funds based upon what you say you're going to expend the funds on, and you're keeping the documentation, all should be well. So LEAs are monitored both on risk and on a monitoring cycle. Make sure that you document your meetings. When you have those stakeholders to sit around the table, make sure you hang on to the agenda. We're in a digital age, so sometimes people will send emails or form stacks. Just make sure that you save copies of that, the sign-in sheets, your minutes, because the monitoring team will take a look to see how the stakeholders have had an input in the needs assessment and in the overall running of this grant and making sure it's meeting the needs of the kids. Make sure charges are for approved activities in the GEMS plan, because again, they're going to pull that latest version that's in GEMS and they're going to come out into the field and ask to see that your charges meet the activities that have been approved within that Title IV grant. And we're coming to the end of our session. It's about 3:35. I want to put up our contact information for the Consolidated Finance and Applications team, because each of us oversee districts with the Title IV grant. It's now been spread all out. So all of us have different districts. So I wanted you to have our contact information. Feel free to email us or to call us. We're here to support you. Okay, so at this time, I'm going to ask Leslie if I have any questions that have popped up in the chat box before I finish for the day.
We only had one, and it was just when will this application be due?
Okay, that information is forthcoming. Right now we're going to work on getting the preliminary allocations out for Title I and Title II, and then we'll take a look.
Okay, and then can Title IV funds be transferred into Title I Part D as well?
Title IV is very similar to 2 and 5, so they kind of operate under the same.
And then for private schools that participate, is their allocation based on if their students are eligible for Title I?
Yes. If you go into the GEMS project, you'll be able to see the private school link. And then if you want to call us, we can give you some detailed information on private schools separately. We'll bring in Theresa Gregory, who oversees equitable services.
And
again, is that all? Is that all you see? So again, I want to thank you for joining us today. I look forward to working with you in a new capacity, in a new role. So I'm excited to do that. If you need me, my door is always open. Feel free to call or to email. We're here to support you. My team is here to support you. We want to enable you to do great things in the field and innovative things in the field. If you are in a district and you have done some things that you are very proud of and you do not mind sharing things that you have done for Title IV, please send that information to your program manager so that we can share it with the field. We've been working with this grant now since 18, and we're now on 21, looking at 22. And so we are beginning to think about providing some opportunities for you all to see what one another is doing so that we can really push the creative side of doing Title IV. So if you've done some great things, please let us know. We want to commend you on your work in the field. And so again, I want to thank you for all that you're doing to support the students in South Carolina. You do a great job and we love partnering with you. That being said, if there's no more questions.
You have one more question from Lee Emma George. Okay, Jennifer, are you still our program person?
I've gotten some questions about that today. For now, yes, I am keeping my districts for now. If I see that changes, I will definitely contact you. But yes, I am still Greenville's point person. So thank you. I appreciate the congratulations on the position. I look forward to working in this new capacity with everybody. I think we're going to do great things. Okay. If nothing else, I'm going to say goodbye for the evening. I want to encourage you to join us again in the morning as we have our final day of ESSA Academy. Have a good evening. We'll see you tomorrow.